when you're on a phone call with somebody and you're having a conversation and you're getting the feel that it's sort of blowing you off, is there a way that you can go about turning that around to be advantageous for you or put yourself in a better position?
Well, I would say you've likely painted yourself into a corner already. So getting out of the corner, uh, you want to get to a different point besides that, right? You have to recognize along the way that you're painting yourself into a corner, and they're going to say that. So it's part of the conversation getting into it, and then of course you still can get in that situation.
That was already headed that way about halfway through the conversation, because
Hmm.
you're not tying them down. You're not seeking agreement on
Right.
key issues, because if you're seeking agreement on key issues and we're all on the same page, we're all on the same page for this objective that is going on in this process, right? And if you're just puking information on them and not tying them down, and they're just going and they're just doing this kind of thing, listening to you, that's not that's not commitment. You need verbal commitments along the way. Otherwise, you can't keep moving forward. It's almost like the
Right.
call will never end if I don't get a verbal commitment from you along the way.
Right. Well, and
So,
it's hard to do a deal without a verbal commitment. So
right,
if all you're doing, like Chuck said, if all you're doing is talking, you're going to get that a lot. If you're
right.
tying down and seeking clarification along the way, seeking agreement on key issues is how we call it. Things like, does that make sense? If we did this, so you're kind of unfolding the conversation and how this is going to be structured along the way, rather than presenting something that it had no conversation. And then they're almost always going to go, well, present that to my team. And the problem there is, so there's a lot of problems right there. And this is why a lot of people don't get business, because they didn't tie it down along the way, because they didn't have a conversation along the way. And then they send information to
Right.
that this person's going to present to a team. Now the team's going to have all kinds of questions. This
Mm-hmm.
person's not going to know the answer because you didn't have any conversation. You just told them, and they don't know how to say it the way you said it, or have a so it's so if we go back to the beginning and go, okay, I'm going to be a little more strategic about this. There's a way to use a strategy. If you use strategy correctly, you can get a whole lot more business. But
Right.
people aren't really taught to use strategy. They're taught to present, or to use PowerPoint and just tell. Uh, and if you're sitting in the audience, you know how that feels, or you know how it feels when somebody just tells you about, oh man, you're going to love this thing because it does all these things. They don't even know if that's what you're interested in.
Right.
So if you're wanting to, imagine you in a situation you're being sold, or you have an opportunity to buy something, in what's better, just to be, how would you work it? If somebody's just regurgitating and they got to the end, you go, you don't even know what to do. And you go, well, I'll give it to my team. Right? That's probably how
Right.
you do it. And that's how
Right.
they do it. So, but if you want to, if you want it to end up differently, well, then you need to play the game a little bit differently along the way. And it's not harder. It's just different. It's just, you know, you break up your little presentation into a conversation by asking questions along the way. And that helps you guide what you say next.
Right.
And then you
Well,
don't
and that
really
helps.
get in. Go ahead.
Well, I just say you have people buy for two reasons: either A, they want it, or B, they need it, right? And sometimes they don't know they need it. I need to present it in a way. When I say present, I don't mean just like, let me just present this to you. I'm asking questions to lead them in a direction of, let's say, enlightenment, if you will, about whatever we're talking
Yeah.
about, that I have to uncover for them that they actually have a need here. And if I can uncover that they have the need, that's when you start shifting really into tie down mode. Like, if I uncover need, I mean, do you see how that makes sense? Do you see how that can be beneficial? Do you see how that would help your company? That would help you. Wouldn't it be better if this were to happen? And you can't be afraid to pause, right? So what I like to do is I just stop. I go, I mean, can you see where that would be a lot better fit for your business? But I'm comfortable with silence, because I know that
Yeah.
once they say, oh, well, yeah, I can definitely see. And you go, yeah, I would agree that would be much better. And then I can move on. Because what I see time and time again with so many sales folks is they go, well, I'm sure you can see this would be much better for your company. So what all we'd really need to do is do this, and we've got to do that, and we've got to put this together and that together. Meanwhile, they're four thoughts behind you. Because you have to remember, you talk about this all the time. They don't, right? Like, say you sell cars for a living, right? I buy a car every handful of years. These guys sell cars every day. So obviously, they're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the game with this person, so you need to almost slow it down a little bit and make sure you ask the right questions, seek those tie downs, and when you've tied them down in their minds, they've already made that mental commitment to this because they see the need. That's where you get less brush off because they've committed mentally to it. You can't just run through and you've committed mentally because you're not the one paying for it. They are. You know what I mean? It's
That's
like,
right.
dude, come on. So
Yeah. That silence Chuck's talked about is golden. That, there's a golden silence where, yeah, you've heard it said before, where the first one that talks loses. Well, they
right.
don't necessarily lose, but it's you have to pause. And most people are really uncomfortable with silence in a conversation, but you have to use that as it's strategy. It's a strategic. Silence is strategic. And so instead of just caving, because in your life conversation, in conversations that you had in your life where silence is uncomfortable, no,
Right.
that's fine in other situations, but here you can use it as a strategy. It's a strategic move. Silence is a strategic move when you have to ask a question and then just wait, and you wait and you wait, and they'll get uncomfortable. It's not just you feeling uncomfortable, they feel the same thing, and they will cave because they don't know it's part of the strategy,
Right.
but you do.
And if you're really uncomfortable, like, I'll do things, I'll give it some time, and it's like, man, we've been silent a long time. And then I'll go,
Yeah.
I'll go, what questions do you have about that specifically? And then I
Right,
stop.
yeah, help them out. Help them out.
Because showing a little grace,
Because when you push it too far, now it becomes bizarre.
it becomes bizarre. And if you show them a little grace, people want that, right? People go, oh, you showed me a little. Then trust starts getting built because
Right.
they go, oh, okay, this guy really has my best interest in mind. He gave me a little grace. He's because people, you know what they fear? They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to make bad decisions, right?
Right.
So your job is not to basically just sell them. Your job is to educate them into making the right choice. And if you position it right and you use a well orchestrated series of questions and tie downs to lead them there that makes sense, they're in order, then you're going to build the trust because it makes sense, and you show them a little grace so they don't feel like an idiot. And that's how you close a lot of deals and not get brushed off. You can't rush it. It's just one of those deals you can't rush it. And I've made those mistakes.
Yeah.
I rush it and I go, well, I blew it because I was not there. I wasn't prepared. So take your time.
It's like playing a game of chess, right? It's not one move.
Yeah,
A
right.
wonderful
Yeah,
song
exactly.
isn't one note.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people just want like, oh, just give me the words. No.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Hold on, little bull. We're going to go down the hill and breed them all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
As you're going through this and you get the sense that they're not entirely engaged, like their responses are taking just a little too long. And, maybe if you hear some clicking of the keyboard in the background, do you call them out on it? How do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a really because you're always going to get, especially when you're selling over the telephone. And I think we've talked about this before. I've seen sales guys doing that, right? Like they're on the sales call, but I can see they're not engaged. And you go, well, that guy will never hit his numbers. Clearly that's not going to happen. So you got to ask them a question to get their attention. And that's a feel thing. I don't know. You're
right. Questions. Yeah. A distracted brain, it's not paying attention to you, but when you ask a question, the brain goes, oh, they just asked something.
Mm-hmm.
I need to now pay attention. And that's exactly why you want to do a conversation and ask questions along the way. Like Chuck was saying, it's a well orchestrated plan of of asking questions, tying down along the way. That's
Mm-hmm.
why presentations don't work, is because you numb them, and they start paying attention to something that's more interesting than you babbling on about whatever it is you're babbling on about. So when you ask a question, your brain, what they, and
Mm-hmm.
if you ask, if you're asking questions on a regular basis, throughout the timeline of the conversation, they're going to pay attention because they don't want to sound stupid. So, you want to. That's why you want to have a conversation when you're selling stuff, not a
Right.
presentation. One of the many, many, many reasons is so that they stay awake and alert to what you're doing. You don't get
Right.
sidetracked and start typing off a something to somebody else.
Right.
Does that make
And you
sense?
got 100% sense. It's spot on. And that's why you can't forget rapport either. You got to do your best to build rapport with them as quickly as possible, because with rapport and people liking you, they're going to give you their attention, right? Like if they think you're a tool, they're just going to go, this guy's a tool. So they're out doing whatever and shuffling papers and talking to other people while you're on the phone. Like, yeah, hey, yeah, can you grab me the foot-long meatball sub from Subway? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear
Yeah.
shit like that all the
Well,
time.
it's true though. You
You
hear
know, it
stuff like
is.
that happens. Stuff like that happens, but it doesn't happen when it doesn't happen much. It still
Mm-hmm.
happens sometimes, but not very
Oh,
often
sure.
when they're engaged in a meaningful
Right.
conversation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you got to be you have to understand what might be happening on their end. It's like a script, right? Or back to the presentation. You think it's all about what you're doing, you know,
Right.
but you have to understand that there's a whole nother side of the world that's going on. But we're always the star of our own movie in the stuff that we're saying and doing, and almost we don't enough take into consideration what the environment that they might be in or what they've been dealing with. And so the kind of science comes in with this, right? If they're constantly distracted on their end, you better do something that keeps them engaged, which doesn't
Right.
mean make it like a circus presentation on your side. Just make it short and sweet and conversational as you can, as meaningful. Don't
Mm-hmm.
waste their time because their brain will get distracted with other things.
And oftentimes when you call, like, I understand, that not everybody's sitting there waiting for my call, right? They're not just going, boy, I just can't wait till Chuck calls me. They got things going on, as John said. And if I call someone and I can tell they're really rushed, like I'm calling a plumbing company or something, and he's answering his phone because the person who does is sick and he's out at a job. I respect that. Like I go, hey, but then I go, hey, so pin a time to talk to them later. And they really respect that and they
Yeah,
appreciate that. You're not trying to shove it at me when I got 90 million things going on, dude. I'm like, here, the person that answered the phone is out today. I'm juggling this. I got a guy calling in for this part. I got delivery showing up. Listen, really. Oh, my grandfather,
yeah,
when I was a kid, would always tell me, you have two ears and you have one mouth for a reason. You need to listen more, like
yeah,
really listen to what's going on behind the scenes with this person, and they
right.
will respect the shit out of you because you handled it right. And then they will give you their full attention when you call them back later. They'll be like, oh
Yeah,
man, they'll be all apologetic and,
right.
oh
And
man, sorry
they'll be
about that.
grateful.
They'll be
Yeah, man,
grateful.
thanks.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So just
yeah,
listen,
yeah.
just pay
Listen,
attention.
listen. Yeah, yeah, really. And that's where, like Chuck had mentioned a little while ago, we've seen people in our office, salespeople, and they're doing other things, and you could tell what they're not engaged with what's going on. They're
Right.
and you go, what, you're on our team and you're doing that?
Right.
What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
But you go, how you know that if they're looking, they're scrolling through, oh my goodness, let's look at the sports scores from yesterday. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, I see the Chiefs lost and Patrick Mahomes got his knee twisted off. You know,
Right.
and and meanwhile their stuff, the plumber example, he's in the background. And you could, if you'd listen, you could clue in on something's, the things that you need to be paying attention to are going
Right.
on, and you're totally missing it because you're not paying attention. But
Right.
yeah, it's like, listen, close your eyes. Imagine being there with them.
100%. That's spot on. And I've done that a lot. I close my eyes just so I can really putting myself there. And that's
Yeah.
because you got to be present in their deal. They don't need to be present in
Yes.
yours because they're not selling me. I'm selling them. So I got to be present in their deal.
So for somebody who's been not taking a conversational approach and they've got a long list of these people who've essentially blown them off and they've sent information to or materials to, should they just chalk those people up to lost sunk cost or lost can't really do anything with them, or how would you approach trying to re-engage them in a way that's not do you just call them up and take the approach of trying to have having a conversation with them to move them down this alternative path, or do you take a completely different approach?
Well, I mean, if you've sent them information, you should probably follow up on them, right? I mean, that's kind of what the end of the call was probably like anyway. But then get your act together. When you call them back, do whatever you need to do. Sit in a dark room where you can only think about them. Do whatever you need to do, but get them on the phone. And I just, I don't like to quit on things, but sometimes you have to, it's fish or cut bait, right? But, I definitely follow up with them and put them in my system because we talk so much about a system because that's how we got here. That's how we live the way we live. So you put them in the system and when I do follow up, I do my best. If not, I keep drip marketing on them and hopefully they'll come around. I mean, but keep moving.
Yeah.
Just keep
Like Chuck said,
moving.
do your best. If you've suddenly seen the light, you go, I see what I've been missing. I know how I should do this. Well, okay, from going forward, do the right thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to continue the bad path with somebody you've already, you started off wrong. It's like, if I'm trying to think a good analogy, if you weren't, if there's a bunch of wild cats running around, like, well, hold on, I couldn't catch them the other way. Well, you don't give up on them and let them keep running around. You go, all
Right.
right, now I have a better way. And now some of them I'm going to catch some, I'm not going to catch others. Some of them are just a lost cause. But
Right.
but like Chuck said, what part of our system is you stay in contact with everybody. I know I missed them. It was my job. Hopefully, I didn't do what I should have done right. I blew it,
Right.
but I'm gonna stay in contact with them, and maybe over time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with anybody who I'm not getting any business from, but I'm going to stay in contact with them. I'm going to continue to send them the right sort of stories in my email, a non-salesy sort of marketing. Here's something that came up, and maybe over time they'll forgive my poor form on
Yeah.
our first exposure, and
Mhm.
something comes up, they go, you know what, I'm going to give this guy a call, and they forget. Women forget about childbirth, and a little while later they're having another one after they said they never do it again. So I can I can make some 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 mistakes along the way, as long as I don't totally torch. I'm not going to be rude or obnoxious. If I
Right.
do something like that, but we're not going to do that. So I just didn't, I fumbled, right? I fumbled
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
But I can get back in the game, and they might give me another chance. But now I'm holding on to the ball tight. I'm doing this in a better way now that I went, I'm not going to do this old way. I see this
Right.
new way. Got it. Understand. Now and if you come back to them and it's like, wow, this guy John sounds like a totally different person. I thought he was a numbskull before, and he's a bit of a numbskull still. But I see how it could work.
Right. Right.
So now they might give me a chance,
Yep.
or they might turn me on to somebody else, right? They go, I don't know, I've never done business with this guy, but you know what, you might,
And you
and
have
that's
to
okay.
stay at it. You have to stay at it because
Yeah.
that's the only way you're going to get better.
Well, that's how you
It's
learn,
like
right? If I fall
that's
off
how
the
you learn.
bike when
Yeah.
I'm 5 years old and never
Right.
ride again,
Right. Then you'll never ride.
You mentioned the ABC contact classification system, specifically that you never call the B's and C's unless they call you first. Seems counterintuitive to a lot of people who think activity equals results, or there's motion is good, activity for the sake of activity is good. Can you just walk through the philosophy behind that and why is not calling 80% of your contacts actually the smarter move?
you brought up action just for the sake of it. No, that's the ultimate busyness, right? It's like running around checking all the boxes and never getting anywhere. And that you see most people do. They're awfully busy running around doing all these things, but none of it really is meaningful. So what you want to do is you want to do what matters most all the time, right? As much as you can at like right now, this matters most. And so therefore we're doing it. Yeah, and we aren't doing it just to do it. This matters most right now. If there are other things that mattered more, we'd be doing that. So you want to be intentional, right? So what we found, if the B's and C's, the probability of getting business with them is really low, then don't spend your time talking to them. You can lay them off to good
Mhm.
marketing,
Mhm.
that they go, oh, that's interesting, and they keep, and so you are still on their mind even though you're not calling them. So it's the ones that matter most, the ones that, if we think, 80% chance I can get business from this person, well, I'm calling those. And when I'm done calling those, most people they'll look through all their list. Oh, I should call that one. They'll pick, and it's the wrong thing to do. What's better to do at that point is to contact people that you've never contacted before. And this is why you want to always be hunting for referrals and that kind of thing. So you always have people that you can call. Or if you have a target list of whatever you like to target, I'll call those cold before I'll call a B or C, because it's a sorting game. This is the strategy. There's a strategy, and there's a way, and if you go about it strategically, then you'll get the life you've always wanted to lead. But part of the strategy is, like, if you're playing any sort of strategy game, you don't do the stuff that's the low value stuff. You play the game of strategy to win, right? It's like I'm not it's like not picking up every card. Like, if you're playing any sort of card game, uh, most any sort of card game, you want to get rid of the cards that aren't doing you any good, right?
Right.
And you want to pick up the cards that make your hand better. So
Mhm.
so we're not going to chase. If a two isn't good for my hand, I'm not going to pick it up just because it's there. I'm going to pass, and I'm going to keep what I have, and I'm going to go a different way. I'm only going to pick up cards that are going to, uh, are a chance that I can win. If I've got, a dud in my hand, I'd rather try for a card that I don't know what it is. You know,
Mhm.
this card that I've got isn't doing me any good. Let me slough that one, pick up the one that's turned over that I can't see. I go,
Yep.
this one is also a dud. I'll get rid of that one next time. Or it's good. I'm going to put that in my hand. It's
Mhm.
it's this constant going through and making your hand better and better and better and better and better. You always going for the better hand. And all those cards you sloughed, all those ones you got rid of, you're still staying in contact with. You're sending them clever marketing, and you're keeping in their mind. But you want to go through 4,000 cards and have the most stellar hand you can ever have in all of time, holding it, playing it. Meanwhile, you're keeping in contact with all those little cards that may suit your hand at some point.
I think that's a great analogy, though. I mean, that's a phenomenal analogy. A card game. If you ever played one, a two comes up and you go, I don't want the two. I want to draw from the pile, and you keep whatever. But I think what people forget is your hand's constantly evolving, right? Because some of those other ones that you sloughed off before, now they're coming into play because they responded.
Right.
The C's now a B and A. And it just, but you can't be so. You got to be somewhat fluid with that. But
Yeah.
I always want more. I always want to call more and let my marketing do as much as possible. I
Yep.
until they
Yep.
prove that they should move up the ranks. That's a great analogy, though. The card game.
It is. Well, we talk a lot about strategy here, right? It's a game of
Mm-hmm.
strategy. This is, most people look at because this is the Freedom Challenge. It's a Freedom Challenge channel, and so if we want to get free, that means we need to win some of the stuff. This is not a 4-year career of doing old-fashioned ways and following up on things that don't matter. That's just not. You point at anybody, or imagine, look around. Who do you know that's ever gotten free doing it that way? If one person, you probably, I don't know of anybody. I've met thousands and thousands of people, and I don't know anybody who does it like that old-fashioned way that they still teach you to do, that's ever gotten free. They end up
Right.
hating their job,
Yep.
because it's a grind and it's miserable. So if we would go, all right, hold on, there's a way. If if you're strategic about it, you can win all the things that you imagine, but it's not the way that you're playing the game now. It's not any more difficult. It's just different. There are other ways. There are other ways that you just don't see or use or play. Or imagine
Right.
if you wanted to get good at poker. You're not going to go out and play poker like an average person and go win the World Series of Poker, are you? You're probably not even going to make it. You're probably going to lose money. Most people that go to Las Vegas, do they win or lose?
They lose. That's why Las Vegas is
They
still
lose. Most people playing a game lose. They're not really aficionados of the game. But if you become an aficionado at the game you're playing to get free, well, you get to live it. You get to win for real life. But most people don't. They want so dearly the life that they always imagine, but they play the game with like bad rules, not good enough rules, right? They're just not quite good enough. But they think if they polish those not really good ways, rules and ways of doing their work, it's going to get better, and it doesn't. It's like there's the harder you try, the worse it gets. But the
right.
more disappointing it is, right? The harder you try, the worse it gets, and it's unfortunate but true. So but when we go, all right, I need to start testing new ways, or use some of the stuff that test some of the stuff that we're talking about,
Right.
and then see how that works, and make it your own. And go, oh, it doesn't work quite like for me, like John said, but but it does work like this for me. Oh my God, that's and now you've leapfrogged ahead a little bit, and now you can't even imagine going back the old way. It's like you look at how you've been taught, like when you're younger, how they taught you how to do stuff, and you go, oh my God, I thank God something clicked and I found a new way.
Right.
And you can do that. You don't have to wait for clicks to happen. You can make them happen. It's like when you're learning, like remember in school sometime when something clicked, that wouldn't have happened unless you're in that environment and they're asking you questions to help you unlock what they're trying to teach you. And then suddenly you go, oh, I see it. I get it. Where you didn't see it a moment ago. It's the same thing with this stuff. But here, it's not a statistics course at Bemidji State University, and you go, oh, good, I got an A. Well, here you get to use it and go, all right, I'm gonna use that every day. And
Right.
that was kind of cool. How can I find another click? Where might I find that? I don't know, but where what can I test? What can I do? Use some of these things that we're talking about. And if you want to use them with us, click on the thing and meet us and say hello, and maybe we can do all this together.
Some of the previous episodes you talked about guru following, reading and following every book, every word of some online, oftentimes these days, guru or expert. Have you ever caught yourself falling into that trap yourself, and how did you snap out of it?
Follow everything Chuck does.
Yeah. Don't. Not everything. Just the good stuff. Just the good stuff. I always say, hey, following people does not pay my bills. It's like, you can follow whoever you want, but you better apply this stuff like right now. And that's proof in the pudding. It's like the things that we talk about here, once you apply them to whatever your processes are, you see instant result. You see results. You go, okay, now I see how this, I know. And I have someone in my life that, boy, they've read every self-help book. They can tell you everything about it, but yet they're still in the same position they were 4 years ago. And I go, well, okay. I mean, I guess I don't know what your objective is. My objective is to be free. So, if whomever you're following is heading that direction and you're applying it and it's working for you, I guess great. Most of the time, what you're going to find is it's not the case. Because they don't have, it just doesn't work. It's what everybody's talking about. It's what everybody's talking about. Do things that work. And that's that right there is proof in the pudding to me. That if it works, then it makes sense. If it doesn't, which most of them don't even apply it, they just read about it and talk about it and they never even apply it. So
right. They aren't really doing. There's a lot of people you see online that a lot of people follow. They don't do it themselves. All they do is go, oh yeah, and they just repeat it. There's tremendous number. Probably most people online don't live it. They read about it. Now they're talking about it. They want to be they want to be that version of it. They've never
Right.
done it themselves. They couldn't. And if you'd actually have a real live conversation and start talking about like real life, they don't have any stories where they've ever applied it. And
Nope.
and I know they're online and they're forming it. So you think that what they're talking about is smart.
Right.
But you want to really, I would say you want to, and if you want to, well, Chuck, I don't want to follow. I don't have any interest in following anybody. Because that doesn't help me. What I want to do is I want to, like, maybe if I see something, I go, oh, I'm going to test that, and it does or doesn't work, and now I don't have to do that anymore. But most people just listen. It's like entertainment, and they don't
Hmm.
actually go out and try the stuff. And so I would say if something sounds cool and interesting and like it would work, test it. Like Chuck said, if it works for you, God bless us, everyone. I think typically what you find is that, it works for the author, maybe. If they've actually ever done it themselves, it works for the author, maybe.
Hmm.
But when you go out and do it yourself, it never seems to work well enough, right? There's some magical system, and I've done those, man. So whether it's people that I've met or books I've read or programs I've been to, all this stuff. And what I find is that all this magicalness, it doesn't work well enough. What I need to do is I need to figure out what works for me. I need to individualize, right? And because the way that I see the world, the experiences I had, the DNA that I have, my chemistry and my experience is totally different than the person that wrote the book or is talking whatever their spiel is. So if it sounds interesting, I can go, okay, I, I can test it. But what I need to do is I need to make it my own. I need to shape it so it works for me. So if you go, well, say it just like this. Well, maybe I don't say things just like that. That's not I would feel
Hmm.
uncomfortable. I would never, it doesn't work for me to say things like that. So I need to individualize it in a way that does work. One, it maybe works with the concept that they're talking about, but it's my words, or I need to bend it a little bit, or I need to target it a little different direction. Maybe it's a decent kernel of an idea, but I need to figure out how to make it my own. And maybe it's total BS. When I get
Right.
out there and start testing it, sometimes I've found it's total BS, you know. But you can't win if you don't enter. But it's individualizing it. You have to have your own ideas and goals and be testing this stuff all be have it on your mind and using it all day long and seeing at the end of the day, did I get more freedom or less when I was doing this? Or what was my all the time uh reflecting on the experience that you're having with it. But you have to try it on. You have to try it on. I mean, if it sounds good, try it on,
Hmm.
test it out. And if it's making a little sense, you need to adapt it to meet you and how you operate and where you want to go.
And that's one big reason. Excuse me. We build in measures where you're always measuring, you're always calculating, you're always keeping track where you're at. Where I've seen a lot of those deals where it's like, yeah, hey, here it is, dude, pat you on the back, see you later, good luck. It's like, well, that clearly can't work. It just can't work because
Yeah,
you need that constant reinforcement. You need that constant checking. You need that constant, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? And then eventually what happens is it becomes so natural for you to do the things that are working that that every second check-in becomes less, right? Because then you start measuring bigger. You go, okay, where am I at the end of the day? Where am I at the end of the week? Because you've it's become part of what you do. It's become part of your DNA, if you will. So you got to constantly test, but you need someone there who is there for you all the time to go, okay, let's course correct,
yeah,
course correct. Most gurus out there, that's not even available. They don't want to
yeah.
course correct. They don't
No,
want to do
because
that.
they're the guru, they're the expert. And
Right.
if right now, if you look at anybody, if they call themselves, well, I'm an expert at this, run. If they call themselves a guru, turn it off, run,
Mm-hmm.
turn away.
Right.
It's just no. You need to be the expert of what you're doing. Not no no no. They and you can join my guru smart club for 25 grand. Now keep your money and
Mm-hmm.
start testing things that to unlock how it works for you.
Right.
And
Right.
a lot of the stuff that you see is like, oh man, they paint a big picture. It's like, hell yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I want that.
Mm-hmm.
But then they don't break it down into the small things that work for you. Because
No.
everything that you do, like if you're testing something or you want to go out and do something to see if it works, it should be about 80 or a little bit more probability that you can do it. It's got to be within reach. You have to break it down
Right.
to small enough pieces that you can that your brain goes, yeah, I can probably do that. That's what you need to start kicking in. And then your brain will find ways to make that work. And if it doesn't work, you go, yeah, but I could have.
Right.
And then you go, oh, okay, I see how to do that little piece. And now the next thing that I do has to be at least 80% probability that it's going to work. So that's where those big picture things, it's too far of a reach. There's no way that I can get to that island from here today.
Right.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then your brain gets distracted and it wants to get high or watch, more YouTube, or
Mm-hmm.
it knows that it can't do it. So you have to give it things that it can do. And these gurus and experts and all that kind of thing, they don't even know what you're doing. So they can't
Right.
even give you that kind of stuff.
Right.
They can give you infotainment and all those things, but they can't give you the little things that you need to figure out for yourself. And then you become self-reliant. Now you go, oh, I know how to figure stuff out. I don't
Right.
have to go to the supposed guru, the supposed expert. Now those things don't work for me, but I do know how to figure things out for myself. And
Right.
now everything is possible, where before it wasn't at all. When
Mm-hmm.
you start figuring out how to become self-reliant and unlocking these things yourself, now that's the path to becoming free.
Exactly.